The chakras. What a big topic in the world of Reiki, and it's one that comes up on a daily basis with me in my practice. So I want to share some thoughts on the idea of the chakras and kind of give a discussion as to if this is a conversation that we should be having. Now, the chakras are a simple way to discuss our nervous system. And this is originating in the yogic traditions or the Hindi traditions of India and spreading around the world, mostly via the practice of yoga, and then subsequently, of course, in a lot of Western Reiki practices, we talk about the chakras. And quite often it's framed from this perspective that Reiki or yoga or all these types of things can somehow open and balance your chakras. Okay. So, first off, and this was inspired to me by a conversation that I was having with a friend of mine in Hong Kong who's a Buddhist nun. And she was saying that, these points are very valid. A blocked chakra or an unbalanced chakra. We don't need to say that in such big terminology. That might simply be, I feel a little bit of heartache, or I've got indigestion, or whatever it might be, right? We might notice an area of the body that needs a little bit of attention. So we can frame that from the idea that it's blocked or that maybe it needs to be balanced or whatever. But then she followed up with this very profound statement. And it's kind of what I was alluding to in this paradigm shift video that I had here previously on the channel. She was saying, but according to who? According to what? What is it, or who is it, that says you have a blocked chakra? Who is it that says you need to balance your chakras? What is making that assumption? What is making or presenting that opinion to you? Well, it's either your mind, or more likely it's the mind of your teacher or the practitioner that you've gone to see for your practice. And from there, this was a very beautiful then continuation of this discussion. Nobody else can make that assumption about you. You're the only one that can say that about yourself. There's no way anybody else can accurately read that about you, right? So if anybody says these things to you, then they're making an assumption, and they're breaking the precepts of Reiki, and they're furthering attachment, which means they're furthering suffering. So the question then becomes, why do we talk about it? Why is it brought up in the practice? And what can we do about it? If you look at the videos on my channel here, I hope there's a general theme of the cultivation of stillness. In these previous videos on the precepts and on this paradigm shift of seeing the external world as a projection of our own mind, I think I'm trying to allude to the same ideas in those videos. If we see the external world as simply a projection of our mind, and that external world is helping us to see the things that we need to work on, then, okay, fair enough. Maybe that would be, in its purest sense, maybe you could argue then that that practitioner or the teacher is helping you to understand what you need to work on. And that could be fair. That could be a valid argument. But it's not framed in neutrality. And here's the caveat to this. If you were neutral, if your mind and your body were as neutral as you possibly could make it, by following the precepts and doing your daily self-practice and working on the reiju, your self-attunement, or remembering your attunement from your levels, then where would the space be in that neutrality for you to have anything that's blocked or need balancing? So then that raises the question that if the external world is simply a reflection of what you need to work on, then it's helping to remind all of us that such statements are a moment for us to find more internal peace. If we're at peace in our mind and in our body, then what needs to be balanced? If we're at peace in our mind and our body, then what needs to be fixed? What needs to be healed? What else is there? Now, the question is, and I know I've had some of the questions of this very question, this very nature on the channel, and I know the immediate question will be, well then, if we are trying to constantly be at neutrality, and if we can find that space, and nothing can be blocked, and nothing can be sick, and nothing needs working on, then why even learn Reiki at all? Why even learn the practice? Because maybe you're different than me or anybody that I've ever met, but nobody is always in that state of neutrality. We simply have this form. This form, our physical body, will naturally present resistance. Even if you're in perfect health, even if you have no connection to physical pain or anything like that, simply the fact that we will all die presents resistance in and of itself. So just that nature alone, just that aspect of our life alone will present resistance. So if we can somehow be free of that resistance, I've met people that are way more free than I am. And it's very inspiring. Maybe you've met people who you look at and you're just like, wow, they've done some practice. That's amazing. I know I have. I'm thinking of them right now. It's giving me goosebumps to even think about it. And it's really beautiful. It's really inspiring because it's a way that, again, remember this idea that if my external world is an expression of my internal state, then their simple presence allows me to see that my internal state can be, and very well should be, that balanced and that neutral. So, we can think about these moments in our life as kind of a goal or a trajectory for our practice to bring us to. However, the vast majority of our day is spent probably in some form or another attaching to anger or worry. Maybe, kind of thinking or projecting into the future about things that'll happen, remembering stories from the past, gossiping with others, whatever it might be, right? So all of those things are happening right now. And by the way, if they are not happening to you, the residue of all the past that is in our cellular nature, in our body, is stuck with us. So all of those things need to be unwound in order for us to let go and simply exist in more neutrality. This is why we have the practice. So this is the answer to this idea that in stillness, if we can't be sick, if nothing needs to be balanced or opened or anything like that, then why do we do the practice? We do the practice because nobody is in that state for the majority of their day, right? I hope that maybe we can get there. I trust that we can get there. I work hard so that I can get there. And I hope that that's felt from everybody else. I hope you feel that in your practice. But until we're existing fully in that state of non-duality, which is impossible because we live in the world of duality, it's starting to get darker here. Duality, right? Things all around me are living and dying. Duality. I am living and dying. Duality. So in that world of duality, there is natural attachment. So this is why we do our best to have our practice. We do our best to find stillness in our daily existence via the practice so that we might recognize that there's no need to talk about the chakras. We might recognize that there's no need to frame our existence with such language like this is open, this is closed, this needs to be balanced, this needs to be whatever, drained. None of those things can actually be true because they're all attachments to suffering. So if we worked enough to let go of something, then it's gone. So then we just let go of it. There's no reason to attach. There's no reason to stay with the story. So, maybe it's okay to frame our practice or our physical experience in this idea of the chakras. Maybe it's okay to have that in our language. I know sometimes in the Usui Reiki Ryoho world, this is a bit contentious. I know that a lot of times people say you can't talk about the chakras because it's not in the language of Usui Sensei or whatever it might be. That's fine. Everything is fine. It doesn't make any difference what language you're using because we're talking about the exact same thing. We're talking about our body and we're talking about the suffering of our body. So maybe we can frame our discussion in those two ways of looking at our state of being. Are we discussing suffering or are we working towards stillness, which would be silence? If we work towards stillness and silence, well, then there's no need to talk about anything else. We simply try our best to stay within the precepts, stay within the self-practice, and stay within the reiju. So, chakras or not, balanced or not, open or not, it doesn't matter. Just try your best to be neutral and quiet. And in that state, then how are they not open and balanced already? Because in that state, everything is open and balanced because everything is moving with the natural energy and flow of all things. All right, everybody, thanks so much. I hope that video helps your practice. I hope it helps kind of the discussion on the chakras, because I know it can be a very, very strong talking point in the Reiki and the holistic wellness world. As always, everybody, be well and in Gassho to all.